Pleased to be joined today by Hannah Huesman. She's the Phillies Mental Skills Coordinator, works with players all throughout the organization, and she joins us from Tennessee. Hannah, how are you?
Hey, Greg. I'm doing great. How are you?
Great. Thanks so much. I guess first, tell us a little bit about your background and how'd you get into doing this?
Yeah, so I'm born and raised in Nashville, Tennessee, and kind of grew up playing sports my whole life. So I knew I always wanted to stay in the sport realm. I just didn't know to what capacity. And so I've actually played softball at the University of Tennessee, Chattanooga, which is a small Division I school in Chattanooga, and found the passion even more. I was like, I love sports still. I want to be involved. Thought I was going to be a strength and conditioning coach for a little bit. Thought I was going to be a softball coach for a little bit, and then took a elective class in sports psychology and ended up absolutely loving it and wanted to learn everything I could about it and help athletes the way I felt like I never really got helped on the mental aspects of performance. And so ended up really following that passion and went to the University of Tennessee and got my master's degree in kinesiology with a concentration in sports psych and motor behavior, which is just like a really fancy way of saying how the mind and the body work together to produce optimal performance. So that's kind of how I got into it.
Did you work for any other teams? How'd you end up with the Phillies?
I did. So as soon as I graduated from my master's program, I did my first internship in baseball, was with the Pittsburgh Pirates. So I worked for them for a season, and then I moved to New York City for a year and a half and worked for a private practice doing the same kind of work. And then I realized I kind of wanted to get my foot back into the baseball world, and so had some opportunities and ended up the best fit was with the Phillies. So this is currently on year number 3, if we can call this a year right now. But
well,
year number 3.
Hopefully at some point soon we'll call it a year.
Yeah.
So what's your role? What's your interaction with the players from, the beginning of spring training till the end of the season?
Yeah, so we're like any other coach, we're just like you have strength and conditioning coach and they're working on their speed, and you have hitting coaches working on their hitting, and pitching coaches, et cetera, et cetera. We are mental skills coaches solely focusing on the mental aspects of their game. And a lot of times we're trying to bridge the gap between the physical and the mental, like combining, okay, like this is your physical approach to something, what's your mental approach to something. So, we're not psychologists. We're not like on the mental health side of things. We're predominantly on the mental performance side of things. And then we have other people in our organization who are more focused on the mental health side, but our department specifically gets to focus on the like on-field performance stuff. So basically anything you could encounter on the mental side of the game: confidence, resilience, composure, all of that good stuff.
How has the current pandemic situation kind of changed the way that you've interacted with the players, and what kinds of things have you been trying to instill in them in what's obviously a unique time?
Yeah, and honestly, I think we are a little lucky because we're still able to do the majority of our job, even if it's through Skype or Zooms and stuff, because most of our job is conversations, and whether it's one-on-one conversations or group conversations. So unlike like hitting coaches who aren't able to get in the cage with them and everything, we're kind of maintaining as much of a normalcy as we would had we still been in spring training and during the season. So we don't have we have 4 mental skills coaches, and so we can't be everywhere at once. So yeah. We usually try to get to an affiliate every month and make sure we're staggering each one of us, so we're making frequent loops and stuff. So that adds a little challenge just because we're not really traveling, and so we're trying to make sure we just are checking in on everybody and constant communication and supporting everybody on a pretty consistent basis, both in an individual setting and in a group setting.
Like, how often are you talking to these guys and trying to motivate and reach out to them and check in on them?
Yeah, so it's a two-way street. They can reach out anytime.
Sure.
But we're typically, our pace is trying to get to everybody once a month. It usually ends up being a little more than that, but that kind of is exactly what we would be doing during the season anyway if we were there, because each one of us is usually at an affiliate once a month, and so that it's very close. It's very similar to what we would be doing if we were in season. So that's the advantage of that.
Yeah. So for the last, 10, 11, 12 weeks, depending on where you are in the country, a lot of people have kind of been, stuck in their homes. Maybe they have kids that they've been trying to navigate through,
Mhm.
schools through Zooms and, you know, trying to work remotely. And it's been, very challenging for a lot of people. What advice would you give, the average Joe to kind of stay mentally sharp, mentally focused during this time?
Yeah, so there's so many things that are outside of our control right now. Like, when are we going to get back? What's going to happen? What do people's jobs looks like? What do kids' schedules looks like in camps and summer camps and school and summer school and all that? That it's almost like you have to ground yourself in something, and it feels like there's not a lot of ways to ground yourself right now, just because the world is spinning and we don't know where it stops or where it ends. And so the piece of advice I've been giving out the most is really try to find the things that you do have control over and the things that you can make an impact on a daily basis with yourself and your family and your immediate surroundings. And just stick with those and do whatever you can that's in your control right now. If you can get a workout in today, do the workout. If you can get some work done today, do the work. If you can spend time with family today, do that. And knowing that, I think also debunking the myth that right now we should be more productive than we've ever been, right? Because people are like, you're home for 2 months. You should be crushing your workouts and eating the healthiest you ever have. And the reality of it is, it's actually the opposite, right? Because we're all thrown off our schedules and like what our lives usually look like. That it's almost like you need to take a step back and be kind to yourself, because there is so much going on that if one day you don't have a productive day, that's okay. Instead of like, no, what am I doing? I'm literally just sitting at home. But it's really just being kind to yourself and trying to focus on the things you have control over, and making sure you're executing those things instead of letting those kind of go by the wayside.
Do you have like selected activities that you encourage people to do? Like, maybe it's just simple, like read a book for a half an hour a day, things like that.
Yeah. So the thing I keep telling people is, if you can and if it's safe, like, go outside. Like, because when you're stuck inside all day, like, that does something to you. Like, even if you, like, on a normal day would, like, leave your house, get in a car, go to work, like, still there's moments where you're outside, and sometimes we forget those moments and, like, that time alone in the car and everything. And so, like, get outside if you can, get sunshine, try to move. It doesn't have to be intense exercising. Go on a 10-15 minute walk. If you enjoy reading, absolutely read. But it's kind of like fitting to whatever makes you feel good. And just like I keep telling people, like, don't just sit in front of the TV all day
Yeah.
every day. Like, get up, move, do something, and, like, I guarantee you that'll make you feel better, and almost automatically put you in a better headspace just by, like, walking outside for 10 minutes.
Is there like a amount of time, or it's just kind of up to each individual person? And even 10, 15 minutes might make a big difference for you.
For sure. I think it's different for everyone, but I think any is better than none. So
Yeah.
even if you run outside for 2 minutes and just, like, literally just sit there and feel the sun hit your face for 2 minutes, like, that's going to make an impact. And so it doesn't have to, and I think people get bogged down. Like, I'm not going on a 30-minute walk. I'm not going to exercise for an hour a day. It's like, do 5 minutes, do 1 minute, and I think once you do that and you feel the benefits of that, you'll be more encouraged and more motivated to keep doing things like that. Like, things so simple as just getting outside.
And you just clear your mind away from the computer, away from the phone, away from the TV.
100%. Like, like, you think about it, it's like constant cycle from one. You turn off the TV, you get on your phone. You turn off your phone, you get on your computer. You stop emailing, you got the TV on, and it's like at some point you got to, like, get away from it. I know I've talked to a few people whose, like, necks and backs are hurting just because, like,
Yeah.
we're on Zoom calls every day. And so it's like, it's imperative to make sure we're still moving, because we are, like, in almost such a sedative state. Like, we have to be on Zoom calls. We have to be sitting here and like, just still. And it's like, you got to find ways to move throughout the day.
For those that don't know, you do every Monday you put out a video on your LinkedIn, on your Twitter, Mental Health Mondays, and provide some tips and inspirational talks to help people every week. Tell us about how those ended up starting, and for those that are interested, how can they find them?
Yeah, so they're on all of my social media outlets. They're on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, like you said, and they're called Mental Sweat Mondays. And it started about a year and a half ago, and I just had a lot of people asking me, like, what is my job? What exactly do I do? And getting to talk about mental performance is something that really excites me. And I just think it's important to educate people a little bit on what mental performance is, but also like help everybody know, like, just as important as social media tells us physical activity is, right? Every day they're like, you need to break a sweat some way, shape, or form, right? Just like what we were talking about, even if it's just a little walk. It's just as important, if not more important, that you're breaking a mental sweat too. And what do I mean by that? It can be anything from like a mental check-in, just how am I doing today, to like reading a book, to doing a puzzle, to doing something that's mentally getting you stimulated and going. And so I was like trying to figure out what's the best way to kind of get some messages out to everybody. And my favorite way of communication is just like short little snippet videos. I'm starting to get into podcasts, but it's taking me a little while. I
Sure.
know people love that. But so I was like, I'm just going to do 1 minute videos every Monday, and they're pretty general and very broad, but the whole goal is just to get you thinking. So like you watch one of them and you're like, interesting. I wonder how that relates to me specifically. And then you run with that a little bit further. But yeah, it's been fun. But the main goal is just to really stress the importance of mental sweating, not just like physical sweat. Like in order for you to be the best version of yourself, you need some kind of combination of both.
So you go to LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, search Hannah,
Yep.
Hannah Huesman.
Yep.
Did
You'll
I spell
find
that
me.
right? I did.
Yep. Perfect.
Huesman, and you'll see it. So you definitely want to check those out.
Yeah.
Um, to bring it back towards the baseball, you know, with and some of these guys are getting ready to go back, and hopefully we'll have something resembling a baseball season. Just could you speak for a minute to the mental grind, especially on the minor league side, that these players go into over the course of a summer, where they're away from their families the whole time. Some of them are married, some of them are engaged. Some of them are away from their parents for the first time for a while. They're young, long days at the stadium, long bus rides, hotels, host families. What does all that build up towards, and how do you guys try to help them through that?
Yeah, I think it's all part of the minor league grind, you know. I think it's incredibly challenging. I think not a lot of people in the outside world of baseball really know what goes into it, and I think that's actually probably one of the hardest parts is they're living this day in and day out, long bus rides, bunking up in rooms, and it's really challenging, and never knowing where they're going to be the next day. Like they could move up, they could move down, they could get released, whatever could happen. And so it's really trying to make the most of every opportunity that they get, and like remember like why they're here. We talk about that a lot. Remember, like, what is your goal, what is your purpose, why do you love baseball, why are you choosing this over being home with families, and sacrificing certain things to achieve other things. And sometimes that's really easy, and it's like, okay, of course I know why I'm here. It's grind, it's tough, but it's good, and I got this. And other days there's tough days where you're like really questioning, like, is this all worth it? And that's real talks, and real communication, and that's where we kind of come in and just can help support them, and hear them out, and hear their real feelings, and be that support, that non-judgmental support system, where they can come in and say how they feel, and just talk feelings and talk through some things that they're going through, and just feel trusted and supported. Is to me, that's one of the biggest things we can do, is build relationships with these guys and support them no matter what they're going through, what they're feeling, what they're experiencing, because the wide realms of emotions that go into being a minor league baseball player, a major league baseball player, are all things that are normal. And whether they're really good or really low or really high or really bad or whatever it is, it's all normal. And so we're here to kind of justify those feelings, and make sure they're still able to perform at an optimal level, kind of regardless of how they're feeling, and really trying to either separate it or make it work for them, and help their performance versus hurt their performance. But it's a grind.
Yeah.
It's like a joke, the minor league grind, but it truly is an incredibly challenging thing to do, for sure.
And this year obviously will be challenging in its own unique ways, whatever it
Hmm.
turns out. We taped this on June 2nd. When you see it, maybe, who knows, they might have had some kind of resolution by then. At this time, we're still, that's June 2nd at 11:16 a.m. We're still waiting to hear. Hannah, thank you so much for a few minutes. Keep up the great work, and hopefully we'll see you at the ballpark at some point here, whenever that may be.
Of course, Greg. Thanks so much for having me. Stay safe.
Thank you. You too.
All right. Bye.
Awesome. Thank you.